Now getting into the all-new YZ450F. I got about 4 pages to talk about the chassis that's all new, the engine, the body, but I want to end with this new power tuner I talked about a little bit last night because it's really cool what we've done with that for the future. Now we're on the engine. Yes. Okay, lightweight engine. You're going to hear a lot about lightweight. You heard about the total amount last night, but for the engine, we really focused on not just making it lighter, but making it stronger with longer pulling power. It's already known to be a beast in the mid-range especially, but we wanted to have a little bit more over rev and longer pulling so you can pull that gear a little longer on a long starting straight, for example. We achieved that through a new intake system, very similar to what a lot of the race teams have been doing with a bigger air box and a dome filter. There we go. New cylinder head. The whole engine is new, but specifically the cylinder head right now. New cams, new intake and exhaust port shape, as well as larger intake valves by 2 millimeters. New piston, new combustion chamber. New lightweight crankshaft. It's actually lighter weight, but it's 6 millimeters bigger in diameter, so it keeps the same inertial mass. This is a big change. All new clutch design. The green area is the new clutch, the gray is the previous. Much more small and compact and light, going to a conical spring as opposed to the coil springs. And a new transmission design and layout. So now that the transmission axles are stacked a little bit, very similar to what we do with the sport bikes. The gears are actually lighter weight, but they're thinner. But we kept the strength by going larger in diameter. And the crankcase, of course, all new. You can't see, in this picture, there's not as many exposed water lines. A lot of that has been routed internally now. And it is a dry sump engine now. So how do we get the power? All those lightweight internal parts, the new combustion chamber, much more efficient intake exhaust porting. The RPM limit is now 500 RPM higher, 5% more power. All on the top. We didn't lose anything down low in the mid-range though. And a full 2.4 pounds lighter, just the motor. In the chassis, all new frame, even though it looks very similar, really focused on improving traction, as well, of course, cornering. The tank rails that go up to the steering neck, those are actually 15 millimeters lower, and that's how we're able to get that airbox volume without making the airbox taller up towards the rider. Revised rigidity balance. The fork and shock have been updated with valving, as well as some settings to match this new chassis character. We also have hand adjust clickers for compression on the fork, so toolless there, a nice little feature. The big benefit, or what we wanted to focus on, is less pitching, so on and off throttle, into corners, out of corners, you don't get as much pitching. A much more calm feel in the chassis, which leads to comfort, less fatigue, and then also more precise and nimble. Eli touched on that last night, just how light and easy it is to get into the corner, into your line. One of the big parts, though, was not only making it lightweight, but making it look lightweight. So, as you can see, it's much more slim in design. The radiator shrouds are a full 2 inches more narrow versus last year's bike. The fuel tank is even a little more narrow without losing any volume. Rider triangle, this has been a request from the market. If you're about my size, 5'9", 5'10", and lower, the bikes have been great, but if you're a little taller, they've been a little bit cramped. So we've opened up that rider cockpit from the foot peg to the seat, 10 millimeters longer, as well as the foot pegs 5 millimeters back. And an all-new body design, again, just focusing on making it much more slim and easy for the rider to move back and forth and around on the bike. So, lightweight feel, not just actual weight, but the feeling, improved fit for all riders, and easier to move on the bike. So weight savings, of course, this was a huge, if not one of the most important focus areas for the development of the bike. This is just a small example. I mean, quite literally every single part on the bike was scrutinized for saving grams here and there, for, as I said last night, a total savings of 5 pounds. So 240 pounds, fully fueled wet weight, gets us right in the hunt, if not actually the lightest weight of the Japanese brands for sure, and very similar to everyone else. Okay, all new power tuner. The focus here was making it much more simple, much more intuitive, easy to use. To be quite honest, in the past, we've had this really detailed grid. So if you know what you're doing, you could really tune the bike to be exactly how you want that power to feel, but you kind of needed to know what you were doing, right? We do have maps online that you could download, but we do know maybe is not the most intuitive. So now, if you follow that little arrow, you can click on a slider button and you can quite simply slide. Smooth power character, aggressive power character. Going to make it much easier. But if you're a rider that wants to learn how to do it a little more specific with the grids, we now have an information guide that walks you through what does changing fuel injection or ignition, what does that do? How does it affect your bike? So it kind of teaches you how to adjust it, how to tune. We also now have a traction control that you can adjust. So from off, low intervention to high intervention, as well as launch control. You can set the RPM you want you get to the line, pull the clutch, full throttle, it'll hold whatever that RPM that you want for a precise launch off the line. We also have a lap timer that you hit your button every time you go over the finish line or wherever you want on the track, so you can go back and see your lap times after you ride. Tuning guides, kind of like that information before, but again, it can literally, as a rider, teach you how to tune your bike. If you want to increase the torque feeling, okay, you add fuel in the bottom, you take away ignition, so it kind of, again, it trains you, it teaches you how to be a tuner in a way. Suspension as well, working with KYB, how can you adjust your suspension based on the feeling you have as a rider. We also have the monitor, so it just kind of shows you real-time RPM and so on. And best of all, it's still free of charge with the bike. The only brand that offers this much tunability and free of charge. Okay, the all-new 2023 YZ450F coming back in both colors, the blue as well as the Monster Energy Yamaha Racing Edition. Coming available starting October. I believe, if I'm not wrong, I believe the Monster Edition bike maybe shows up a little bit before the blue one, but anyway, starting in October. And as I said last night, we do have some GYTR parts being developed. Obviously, arrival in October maybe is a little bit later for sure, so certainly the accessories are going to follow once we get the bike. So starting after the first of the year, we'll have a lot of these available, especially that GYTR clutch kit, high compression piston, the ignition covers, lots of great items here. Okay, that wraps it up for me.